I will say this, and this is in terms of corporate, is you have to want to be better. It's very easy to go to corporate places and, for lack of a better term, die. Like a lot of people will go to these companies and they will ride it out into the sunset and never learn a new thing ever again. Especially really big companies that can't change as fast. A lot of people just like, I just want a paycheck. But I do think that is kind of it's a blessing and a curse, because in this industry, you'll always have a job if you want to keep learning. But if you get left behind because you're just not interested in it anymore, I think it's more difficult for you in the future.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey, my friend. Now, what a special episode I have for you in this one for many reasons. But I'll just start by saying this. When I began my career in web design, my initial goal was just to get a job as a web designer. My thought was for an agency or a business or a corporation. I thought that was going to be it. That was going to be the dream. But I quickly realized about myself that corporate is not for me. I enjoy freelancing and entrepreneurship, the risk and reward that this lifestyle provides. However, I realize that that's not for everybody. So I'm so excited to share a conversation I had recently with a web designer who has been a corporate web designer for 2 decades now, over 2 decades. And he also happens to be one of my closest friends. This is Chris Webb. Chris has worked both as an agency web designer and corporate web designer and developer, again, for many years. And he has a very unique perspective on the pros and cons of being a agency versus corporate web designer, but he also does freelance on the side. So he knows quite a bit about the stresses and challenges of a freelance web designer. So that's what we're going to get into in this one. I don't want to encourage you to take one path or the other, because not one path is right or wrong. But if you're interested, like I am, in what it's like to be a corporate web designer nowadays, I think you'll learn a lot from Chris. And maybe you are in a corporate role and you realize that things have gotten stagnant and stale. I hope you learn from Chris and are able to take a lot away into where you are in your journey. And if you're done with corporate and you want to come to freelance, I hope to be the one to help you there when you join my community, Web Designer Pro. So without further ado, here is my good friend, Chris Webb, freelancer, agency, corporate web designer, all the above, all around awesome guy with decades of experience. And I'm excited to see what you take from him. You can go to the show notes for this episode, which are going to be at joshhall.co/397. All the links will be over there. You can also check Chris out. We will have his website linked over there. You can also go to chrisvweb.com if you'd like to go check him out. Say hey, tell him you heard him on the Web Design Business Podcast. Without further ado, let's hear about what it's like to be a corporate web designer. Chris, this is wild, man. We do this in person. So to see you in Riverside, this feels like a different experience, but man, I'm so pumped to catch up and actually record one of our conversations. Every time we hang out and we leave, I'm like, God, I wish we would have recorded some of that. So thanks for taking some time, dude.
All we're missing is a big, busy coffee shop downtown.
Yeah, a nice loud coffee shop. We're like, what was that? Well, Chris, dude, I want to say, I can't believe I've had the podcast for like 6 years and I haven't chatted with you publicly. Yeah. But I just want to take this time to say like a sincere thank you. When I think about when I got started in design and web design, there was really like two kind of like mentors, a local business owner who helped me get started, and you were preceding all of that. I mean, you were like the first person I knew who was in graphic design. And I remember being super jealous of your office at the NAS when you did graphic design. I thought that was so cool when I was working my cabinet making shop. I was like, oh my gosh, one day I'd love to be like Chris and, go into an office and do design work. That would be amazing. So,
and now you've taken off, man. Now I want to be like you. I like how this works. So
yeah, what's the Star Wars? The apprentice has become the master.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Well, what's so cool, man, is like, we've both we've stayed on similar trajectories, although we have we have different paths, of course, but you've still stayed really consistent in design. And last time we talked, I mean, you're super entrepreneurial in all of your endeavors, but you've continued to like stay at the kind of, I view you as like a bit of like the leading edge of just design in general with both web and then AI now. So, yeah, man, I just wanted to say thank you, because when I think back to, I'm like, gosh, you were such a huge help. I mean, remember when I got my first Mac? Do you remember that, when I got my MacBook?
Yeah, the iMac in your parents' basement or something.
My dad's basement. I was like, dude, Chris, I got a Mac, and you were just like, holy cow, I'll be over in 5. And
I did. I came over that day.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yep, showed me how to use it and everything. And then, one of my first big experiences that really made me fall in love with design in general was going to that Photoshop conference with you, that all day in-depth Photoshop conference, which was incredible. So yeah, man, I just wanted to say publicly, dude, thank you for taking me under your wing. You really helped me get going years ago.
Dude, well, listen, man, the honor is all mine. The pleasure is all mine. It's you did all the work, and honestly, it was just me showing up to your guys' band, and you guys were, you were drumming at the time. And so I think that was like our first engagement on web stuff. They were like, we need a website. And so we ended up talking. That was, Aaron or whoever it was. And, so you did all the work, man. I just got to enjoy the ride. It was awesome.
Well, I do remember when we were in the band days talking about a website, and I think maybe I had just started dabbling into web design or had thought about it. I had already been doing graphic design. And I remember asking you, like, what would like a typical band 5 to 10 page website be? And you said like a couple $100 a page probably. And that like blew my mind. I was like, what? I was appalled and offended at, a website that may be $1,000. And of course now it's like, well, yeah, obviously starting range. So, it is. I mean, you've been in freelance pretty much since day one, right? Like, can you just give us how long have you been in design?
Man.
Between graphic design and web? I mean, I remember you doing it in high school. I remember you playing around with Photoshop in high school.
Yeah. Well, so I guess my story goes, you and I were in art together in high school. And so art was always a passion of mine. And I'd taken a commercial art class, I think is what they called it then. And then, I didn't really know what I was going to do with myself. I signed up to go to Columbus College of Art and Design in Columbus. And
that's right. I forgot you went to CCAD. That's right.
Yeah. I went there for 6 months, and then I stopped showing up to classes, and I just realized that my passion was not in drawing for the rest of my life. And so actually, and I have to throw kudos over to my brother-in-law, Wes. He actually took me under his wing when I was at the church, and he was doing web design and all that stuff freelance. And so while I was going to school, he was just basically like mentoring me when I wasn't in class. And then, I kind of took off from there. He kind of he had kind of networked with me a little bit, introduced me to a few other people that were in the industry. Once I stopped going to CCAD, I switched over to Columbus State. Went to the community college there, just enough to get a job. And then, I don't know. Big kudos. My big kudos is the West. So I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. But yeah, the design work is what really got me into the web in general. And I mean, now I'm developing almost all the time. So it's changed kind of quite a bit.
Well, I love how the trickle of inspiration kind of goes through not generations, but just different people. Because like you mentioned, Wes, family friend for both of us. Brother-in-law for you, family friend for us. And so for those who well, no one would know this, but when I played drums in the youth band back in the day, Wes was our worship leader. And I do remember Wes. I mean, he gave me some pointers, so I got to throw him in as an original mentor as well. Now that I think about it, gosh, it was so long ago. But I do remember hearing about him doing websites. I mean, we're talking what, like 2003?
I mean, graduated 05. So, I mean, yeah, so it had been 03, 04.
Yeah. So like well before WordPress even came out, probably, maybe before Dreamweaver. Got to get Wes on next.
Dreamweaver.
Yeah, baby. It is cool though to think about like what Wes was doing, and I don't know where he picked up his chops from, but then that filtered down to you, which filtered down to me, which is filtering down to, thousands of people now. So that's pretty cool. Thinking about
I do think that's the industry though. What I do love about it is that it's a sharing industry. Like I do think at some point you get kind of competitive and everybody wants to, everyone wants to make a footprint. They want to be the shining star. But I've been blessed with people in my life that have wanted to share some of that knowledge with me. I think Wes got it from Greg, another guy from the church. So it's full circle, man. And here we are talking about it. And it's come a long way.
What have your different roles been? Because you started doing graphic design for the church, right? And then you were doing freelance. Did you do purely graphic design before web, or did you get into web pretty quick?
Yeah. So I started doing graphic design. So in the beginning at the church, I did graphic design for the youth, the youth ministries there. They didn't really have a need for the web, but I had already kind of started going down the web route just because it was what Wes was doing it, and that's where people were making money. And so I started doing graphic design, picked up web along the way. And then it just kind of spiraled from there, I guess. I think Dreamweaver was next. Dreamweaver was kind of like you're a half designer. It was good for designers because you could take it and then develop it just a little bit. But really, we're just using like their version of like auto layouts, and you're using like what do they have, the 1x1 pixel spacers. And
I remember slicing it up, and then you'd see the CSS, and it'd be like, holy cow, this is what's going on.
Yeah, and now you just throw it into now you just throw it into AI, and it just makes it automatically. So
you got into web pretty quick, but then like in your corporate life, what have your roles been in the corporate, and what is your role now? I still don't know exactly what you do right now, Chris.
Yeah. So all right, so go back to the beginning. So graphic designer, moved on from there. Was making like pennies. I needed to get a big boy job, and I had
because you got married too back then, right? Weren't you married?
Yeah, I got married when I was 19.
That's
and
right.
So there was the adapting to marriage life, and then after that, Greg, the guy that I mentioned before, the one that had mentored Wes, he had actually thrown my name out to a guy named John, and John was like my first intern boss. And he's like, hey, I'd love to have you come on for a little while, become just a web designer, because that was all it was then. It was just a web designer. John had me on for about 6 months, and then I finished my internship, went back to the church, and then I joined the military in 2010 in the Guard. So then after I got back, I mean, almost within a couple of months, I got a message from a girl named Courtney. And she was like, hey, I heard you do web design. There's a new job that's at a big company, 31 Gifts. At the time, they were still around, and they were popping off. And so they were like, hey, you want to go on contract for a while? And at the time, I was like making very little money. And so I'm like, I'll do anything. And she threw out like an actual like job that you can take care of your family money. And I was like, yeah, let's go. So I went over there, took the contracting gig. I did web design. I could say I was their first official web designer. That's not a big name now, but at the time I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I remember that, man. I remember you gave me a tour of like the facility. I mean,
I did. It wasn't much of a tour.
My socks were rocked off, dude. Because I mean, I was like, holy, like you were like a legit designer at a legit. I mean, yeah, at the time 31 Gifts was huge. So
yeah,
God,
it was amazing. Yeah. It was like an open layout, all of these, professional designers and developers, they were all just hanging out in this big open space. We all had our own computers. It was unreal. I really, to this day, I'm so grateful for that job. If I had not started there, I would not be where I'm at today. So 31, yeah, huge kudos to them. They're not around anymore, but that was cool. After that, I jumped into I got deployed in 2014, and then about a year later, when I got back, an agency had written, and probably, I'm guessing some of your listeners know this or whatever, but the agency was the pinnacle of being a designer, a developer.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you went and worked, it was like the professionals, in my opinion, of like designers or developers who were really trying to make it.
Yeah, because there's a difference between working for a corporate company like 31 Gifts and then being in an agency where you're contracted to different corporations and businesses, right?
Yeah. So yeah, corporate is like you have one brand, and then you are 100% invested in that one brand. Whereas, and you have one development stack, you have one, like the designers are all focused on one, set of designs. You don't see it. There's no landscape. But when you go to an agency, when I took on to this job at this agency, you basically were like, you could be working on 5 different brands at once. And so you'd have WordPress, or you'd have .NET, or you'd have, sometimes it was just like raw HTML code. It was, I love those people to death, and they gave me the amazing opportunity to kind of check that box off. But that had to have been the most stressful time of my life.
I was just going to ask, what did you like more?
God.
Did you like being, so if we could bucket these two roles, a corporate designer or a agency designer, did you like being more of a corporate designer more than the agency route?
I think I liked the agency work better, but the timelines were stricter. You were pleasing so many different clients at once that it was just not fun. And here's the other thing too. It's really like this anywhere. And this is kind of like my view on design nowadays anyways. It's not really your design. Like you have an art director, you have a creative director. I basically come up with the initial design, and then they just redesign it based off my initial. Like, so if I had to pick, I don't know. I'm in corporate world now, so I guess I liked corporate world more.
Pros and cons to both, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know from what I've seen in the agency world and just knowing, working with some agencies, and like I did some work with Rev Local, and I subcontracted for them for a while, and I've seen some of the agency world. I'm like, man, I just don't have an interest in the agency world. And I know a lot of people gravitate towards that. And I think it does work for some folks, and depending on their aspirations and the stack of offers, and like what they're doing. Yeah, it can work really well. It's like a full stack digital marketing agency, but man, you said timelines and stress. And I just don't know anyone who comes out of the agency world and was like, that was just peaceful and fun and freedom.
Let's do this again. Yeah, I'll just share. I was doing some work for Giant Eagle, and so this project was due. Let's see, I don't remember when I started it, but it was due in December, and December came, and the client had some feedback and whatnot. Well, in order for, for the administrative business stuff, they needed this project to be wrapped up before January 1st. So December comes, we deliver the designs and the development work, and they're like, oh, we need some changes. Well, everybody's trying to take off. Like, we're all just trying to get out for the holidays. Push comes to shove. It's like like New Year's Eve, and I am still working on this project. Like I want to say I'm pretty sure I got it done before then, but then of course they had some more feedback in January, but it was like, no, it's not worth when you're young and you have, you don't have as many responsibilities as one thing, but when you got a family, man, that's brutal. So.
And it's different. What's the feeling? Because I've never been a corporate or agency designer other than some white label, like subcontract work. But that was very different than like going there full time working. What's the feeling like between agency stress and freelance stress? You know what I mean? Because like that can very well happen as a freelancer, but I feel like there's something different when it's your own business and you control a little more of the timelines and deliverables potentially.
Yeah. Freelance is a lot more self-managed. You have to make sure that you really do need to put pressure on yourself to hit all of your timelines. At least as far as my freelance goes is I like to lay out a timeline for when they can expect everything. If it's a check-in after a week, or if it's a review after a couple of weeks, or if we say we're going to launch the website on this day, you have to. It's really easy because it's just whenever you have time to work on it. Well, there's a lot of responsibility to make sure that if you want to be a successful freelance brand, and you want people to spread your name, you have to hit all of your timelines. Whereas if you're in an agency world, like if I don't hit it, it's their brand that takes the hit. It's So there's two different kinds of stresses. There's the stress of like trying to create your own brand. And then there's the stress of you don't want to get fired for not hitting the timeline. So yeah, they both hit differently.
What's corporate stress? Is it just like the amount of people that, you need to go through to get something out the door? I imagine that's what it is.
I would love to know. I actually would love to hear this question asked to a lot of people in the corporate world. So in 31 Gifts, the stress was different because they used to have outlet sales. All right. So I'll say this. They would have general timelines for everything. But whenever it came to seasonal type things, things that were supposed to be released, at the beginning of a new season, you had to have sites up at a certain time of night. Like it had to be when the websites were down, or I'm sorry, not the website, when the viewers are the least. So it'd be like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And so
Gotcha.
You would have to go and release a website or whatever. And back then, this was probably like 2010-ish era. Like then there wasn't like these deployment strategies. Like if, there weren't all these checks and balances. So like you could easily screw something up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Like you go to like update the new website and replace the files. It was like, your SOL if you mess up then. Then you're calling, then that's when like the CEO comes in and you're like, I'm not gonna be working here. But anyway, now I work downtown at a bigger place, and the stress is so much different. Like I always describe it kind of like corporate world is like a cruise ship. You take a lot longer to turn around if you have changes. So if you're going down this path and you're in this cruise ship and you're like, we're supposed to go that way, it takes forever to turn around. So everything's slower. Everything needs to be checked. Everything needs to be ran through all the different checks and balances. Whereas smaller corporate places or agencies, you can move a lot faster. Mm-hmm. Even in the corporate world, there's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you seen Office Space?
Yeah.
I just imagine like I have 8 bosses. So anytime I do something wrong, I hear about it from 8 different people. I imagine all of those cliches ring true. That would drive me bonkers, dude. That would drive me apes. I think especially being self-employed and freelance for as long as I have, if I had to like wait on multiple rounds of like people, that would lose my mind. But I guess it's interesting because looking at these different categories, corporate designers, agency designers, and freelancers, they each have their pros and cons. Like as a freelancer, you've done freelance for how many years have you been doing freelance technically? Like
I
20
think I
years?
have it on my LinkedIn. It's like 2007 was like my start time, but
Wow.
probably didn't get into like legit. I didn't stop doing band websites until probably 2010. So
yeah, but I mean, almost 20 years of doing freelance, like there is a different, like you said, it's a little more self-managed stress. And yes, you may have a lot of different quote unquote bosses with clients, but you control a lot more of that. And you can ramp up and down with how many projects you want to take on, et cetera. Agency seems like, just from the designers I've talked to, and I know the rates on agency churn. I mean, my gosh, designers are in and out and in and out and in and out. Brutal, absolutely brutal. And then corporate, I feel like, is just probably just the bureaucratic stuff that is a lot of the cons and downfalls that come along with that. But they kind of each have their own thing, don't they? I mean, you've done all three of those categories. I feel like somebody may need to just choose, I mean, obviously with this podcast, we're talking mostly freelancers and some agency folks, or folks who are doing white label work for agencies, like maybe a couple different agencies. But all that to say, like, you're never going to be a designer and have like this perfect, clean path that is not going to come with some stress and downsides.
Yeah, you got to accept it regardless. I think I will say this, and this is in terms of corporate, is you have to want to be better. It's very easy to go to corporate places and, for lack of a better term, die. Like a lot of people will go to these companies and they will ride it out into the sunset and never learn a new thing ever again. Especially really big companies that can't change as fast. A lot of people just like, I just want a paycheck. But I do think that is kind of it's a blessing and a curse, because in this industry, you'll always have a job if you want to keep learning. But if you get left behind because you're just not interested in it anymore, I think it's more difficult for you in the future, because it's so easy. There's just so much that can happen in just a year. So I don't know. You have to kind of decide. So personally, I guess I'm not here to sail off into the sunset, but it is slower. And I think if I could give any tips to anybody that's in the industry that's working in corporate, is freelance is your way to stay edgy, to stay with the program. So yeah, that's my thought on that.
That's well said, dude. What a segment right there. What a clip. That is very well said. I mean, I feel like it's probably just complacency that corporate leads to, because like you said, you do kind of get comfortable. And I think even maybe just the environment almost encourages that from the outside looking in, because if it does take 8 people to get through and then get a revision back in 2 weeks, it's like, why? I would feel like why rush? Like, why rush this thing if it's going to take this long? I definitely could see how that all feeds into each other. So a gold nugget of advice to utilize freelance to help you boost up in other areas, both creativity and you're staying on the leading edge of stuff. I mean, like our last chat in person, you were sharing some of the AI stuff you're up to. And I was like, what? I imagine that's coming out of your freelance endeavors, right? Rather than like, is Nationwide encouraging you to like go further into certain areas, or are you doing this on your own and then bringing it to the corporate world?
Yeah, it's crazy. So AI, oh man, AI is, so everybody, every corporate world, every corporate company, they're all chasing to be at the leading edge of AI. And so it's a little bit of a contradiction to what I was saying, because the rest of a lot of development, a lot of design, a lot of that stuff is kind of slow, but they are dedicating tons of money, millions of dollars.
But is that just because of AI? Do you maybe that wasn't the case over the past 10, 15 years, but with AI, have you seen a shift in the corporate landscape where suddenly they're like, oh shoot, not only do we need to catch up, but we need to try to get ahead?
Yeah. The last couple of years, I mean, it's to the point now where, so Copilot is GitHub's tool, I guess. And so they've installed it. They've allowed us to install it on our our IDEs on like VS Code, like our development software, and they encourage it. Like it's to the point where it's you're almost like your bosses are following up with you. They're like, hey, how, like, are you, what's working for you? So personally, I'm actually on a project right now, learning something about builder.io. And it is a AI software that can take designs and basically turn them into very semantic, well thought out code. And my boss is trying to check off this AI research piece for his own job. And he's like, hey, I need you to do this, and I need to know all about this software. Basically, because there's this fear that if we're not pursuing AI, then Nationwide's going to look like they're behind. So yeah, the last couple of years, basically when it went public, for sure it existed before, we all had our hands on it, but once it went public and everybody had their hands on it, dude, the amount of work and the amount of output that you can get out right now is unreal. So
what is your title? Are you a web designer in your job description, or a developer? What, man?
So technically, so I got hired on as a creative technologist, and that was like a fancy way of saying designer developer. But now I'm a UI engineer. So when you throw engineer onto any title, it makes you feel a little bit, a little fancier, but
yeah. Where's the pipe with some smoke or something? Yeah. Wow.
Oh man. Yeah. I walk into meetings with my chest out. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so UI engineer is technically the role that I'm in now, and it's basically the same thing. I feel like, they've had a million different like. There was a time where people were calling themselves like web ninjas. You could call it anything you want. So yeah.
Shit, I forgot my question. It was a good one too. I derailed myself. Damn it. Let's see. Oh, that's fascinating though. Just, I do feel like there's probably a corporate shift and all that stuff. So you are, with the work you're doing right now, Chris, are you overseeing like team members in your like, how's that work with the chain of command for you?
Yeah. So I'm on a really small team. There's not a lot of hierarchy in our team. We have designers and developers on this team, and I'm actually more on the developer side of this team. So then we have our, and it's weird. I'll just say this too. Like at this company, it's very weird. You can be a senior level something at agencies, other corporate places. But when you get into really big companies, they have their own like level. It's like the military. They have their own level of ranking structure. And so you have like consultants, senior consultants, those kinds of things. And it feels like you're just working with, well, I guess to get more on track with what I was saying is you have like a director, and that director is essentially the maestro, and they're just kind of like, hey, here's what we need done, and then can you make it happen? So we we're kind of a I don't know, self-managing type. We all pipe in. There is no real hierarchy on this team. So.
Gotcha. Is your tool stack different for freelance versus corporate? I think that was the question I was thinking about a little bit ago. You've been using Divi for years.
Yeah.
And I know you've been using, obviously you can custom code. But yeah, what's like your freelance tool stack, and then what's your corporate tool stack?
It's a good question. Let's see. I actually have, so I always run, so I use Chrome. So Chrome is my browser of choice. Firefox has kind of been like all but like, I don't know. We can't even use Firefox at work anymore. So, and then I use VS Code for my development, GitHub Copilot. I have a subscription to that. I will say this, everybody, and this is my personal opinion, everybody's using AI. It's crazy. People act I want to say people in the industry pretend like they're not using it. And then they're like delivering this amazing code. Everybody's using it. So if anyone's wondering, so I run Photoshop, Illustrator, Figma, and then I always have my terminal running. So my terminal is what I'm using to basically run all my little like micro commands and things like that. So that's my stack at home. And then of course I'm still doing freelance. So then I'm running MAMP to, I'm not sure if that's what you're using or not, but so I use MAMP to manage all of my WordPress sites. MAMP Pro is amazing. So essentially when I build a WordPress website, which has been mostly with Divi lately, so all of those websites I can build locally on my machine. And then when I'm finished, I can take that and I can deploy it to the server or wherever the final landing destination is. So,
okay. So it's similar because I use local W. Gosh, it's been a while since I've opened it. Yeah, localwp.com is what I use. I wonder if it's kind of similar to where you can build locally and then you have an option to deploy it from there.
Yeah, probably. This is what the agency used to use, and I got used to it, and so now I'm just like, I'll probably die with it. I mean, you remember Mr. Lundquist, and he. It's funny. I'm at this point in my career. I remember he used a software called Fireworks. So Fireworks was like vector-based design before Illustrator wasn't even a thing. Like before Photoshop was a thing. Everybody designed websites with it.
Gotcha.
And I remember going to his class, and we're all, we're the leading edge, and we're using Photoshop. And he's like, well, I use Fireworks. And he's like, it's what works for me. And I'm like, you're so behind.
It's dude, the typical old guy won't stop using his.
So now I'm like, the software that worked for me like 8 years ago. I'm like, I still want to use Photoshop for everything. If I could lay out websites in Photoshop, I would.
Well, this is a good point, man. Cause like I see this a lot now because I've been in this industry for, a while, 16 years this year. And I'm working with a lot of people who have been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years. And this is a really common issue, especially for folks who are running their own business and their own agencies, is they don't want to just drop their tool stack and have to relearn everything and hope it works out. Like this is why, interestingly enough, like with us using Divi, I know that Divi's taken a lot of heat over the past few years, understandably so, with it just being an outdated platform because it was revolutionary in 2013 and 14, but it's dated now, well, until Divi 5. But the problem is, like, if somebody's got 100 client sites using Divi, they're not going to want to just jump ship right away and learn a whole new platform and migrate everything over. That is a massively costly move. So I think this is really common with folks who've been in it for a while, is you get kind of not stuck with your tool stack, but understandably like set with your tool stack. And man, would it take a lot to change those things.
But you know what, though? My mentality has changed on that. I will be the first to admit that I was that young student who was like, that looks at, that would look at some of the more senior folk that would be using these old outdated softwares. But now that I'm that guy, I'm the old guy, like what I've realized is it has nothing to do with the tool. It doesn't matter what tool you use. Like it's the output. It's, are you delivering what they want? It doesn't matter how if it came through Photoshop or Sketch or Figma or or whatever the case is. If it's Divi or if it's what's the new WordPress builder, like it doesn't matter. It's the end result. Is it doing what they expected it to do? And then can they learn it? But I will say, I mean, I know you have a ton of experience with Divi, but the new like AI builder is kick ass. Like it is
inside Divi.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was messing with it the other week, and I mean, a simple prompt. I mean, there's no better time to be a web developer, like, or a web design, like literally like the power of, if you are good at marketing, if you are good at communicating, if you love talking to clients, like that's what's going to set you apart now. Like how good you design or how well you develop or whatever. Like a lot of that's being taken over by AI. Like there's no reason for people to not be able to excel in a business of some sort. So, I mean, that's at least in my personal opinion. And the Divi piece. I mean, I think I just wrote a prompt and I was just like, here's a website I really like. I don't like the design, but I love the content. Can you help me build something that is similar? I mean, they had a homepage like stood up in like 35 seconds. And then all of the tools are there. So you can tweak it to however you want.
When it, in your mind, Chris, because I appreciate that challenge of like not getting too comfortable, like with the story of Lundquist, our old CSS teacher. My question to you is like, when do you change? Do you have have you ever thought about the metrics that you acknowledge when you want to change a tool? When you realize like, oh my God, I got to go to Photoshop. What was it? What was Lundquist's old tool?
Oh, Fireworks.
Fireworks. Yeah. Like the question is like, with that idea of moving from Fireworks to Photoshop, what are the red flags or the signals that's like, oh my gosh, I need to change tools. It's time to move.
It's a good question. I always seem to know, but I never know how.
Is it gut feeling?
It's a gut feeling, but really like it's, I've found that whenever I've gone to new jobs, they'll have a stack. And let me back up. Agencies are great. Like agencies are probably, if you know people in agencies, and I actually stay in contact with all these people that I used to work with. We have a Discord Slack channel where we're all kind of talking about what we're doing. I would say the best thing to do is network with other people that are doing your job and talk about it. And you'll know if you're in the industry and you're reading up on websites or if you're listening to podcasts, I mean, you're going to hear kind of what's upcoming. So that's not a good empirical evidence about that, but I do think that if you just kind of keep your ear to the ground, you will know. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And of course, with My Community Pro, that's one of the biggest hidden features of it is folks are staying up to date on stuff with all sorts of platforms. And because it is agnostic, we of course have a lot of folks using Divi and WordPress in there, but we do have a lot of folks who are using Squarespace and other platforms, other CRMs and client management stuff. So I agree. I think that can kind of help because you could probably get a sense of like what's popping. And then you're like, okay, maybe I should take time to look into this. Well, and that is kind of we meet up for coffee, every few months or something. And a lot of times it's just like through organic conversation, you'll be like, oh, I've heard about Figma. Oh, you've heard about Figma. You guys are using Figma? I think I even asked you that when Figma really started taking off. I'm like, are you guys using, you know anything about Figma? And I don't know if you did at the time, but we were coming from Sketch. And the more conversation you have with people, the more it's going to surface up like what their stack is. And then you hear Sketch or you hear Figma and Figma. You're like, oh, well, a lot of people using Figma. In fact, a good example was Adobe XD was going to be the competitor to Figma. And there was a time where Sketch, Adobe XD, and Figma were the three leading layout tools. And we were all like, well, what's it going to be? Well, just through natural conversation, you just kind of found out, well, Figma's taken off. Yeah. And so now it's kind of the standard. And I think they just released an IPO recently. So, I mean, they're taking off. What's your AI stack right now? Honestly, ChatGPT, Copilot. I use it for almost everything. It's, literally just consulting it with code, getting some clarity on, a direction that I want to go. In fact, I pay for it. I think the paid version is very, you can pay, I think it's like $20 a month or something. Yeah, I'm on it too, the pro version. Yeah. But what I love about it, so worth it. Yeah. Yeah.
what I love about it is that it keeps context over your entire, all of your prompts, all of your chat history. It keeps context for everything.
By the way, this episode is sponsored by OpenAI and ChatGPT. Get your free trial today. No,
throwing out names.
Not sponsoring them, but we're both paid users. So yeah. I know. I was just kind of curious. I wasn't sure with how like leading edge you are, and this stuff. I wasn't sure if you had like 20 AI tools you were using, but so ChatGPT and Copilot, those are the big two.
Those are really it. I mean, there's Gemini out there. You said Claude. There's so many, but the thing is like, if what's the old saying? If you chase too many rabbits, you catch none. That's in this industry, you really kind of have to double down on something. And so for me, it's just ChatGPT. I think, or OpenAI, like they really cover all the bases. So anything that ChatGPT is doing, Gemini is doing, all of those other companies are doing. So,
dude, I'm using it. Like, it's funny. I'm just at the starting point of revamping nearly all of my courses. I'm going to start chipping away at them, and I'm working on my first revamp, which is my DNS course. And I'm going through each lesson. I'm like, how did I do courses without ChatGPT? Especially with technical kind of stuff, because I'm like, like when I'm diving into EPP codes, like I know that deals with a website ownership, but like what's actually going on behind that? So like I'm including all that stuff in my new version of the course, and it's so much better because it just takes so much R&D and just gets right to the chase. And of course, you need to fact check some stuff, but with stuff like that, it's pretty spot on. So yeah. Anyway, I was like, how in the heck did I do these courses without the help of an AI assistant like that?
Yeah, I honestly, man, I want to be the kind of the stick in the mud. Like there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to embrace it. Just because I don't know. There's something like very, I was telling a coworker about the other day, like I love the art of coming up with something from start to finish, but that's kind of like my ego. Like my ego is, I want to say that I had control from start to finish, and that whatever comes out on the other side was because of me. But if you really want the most quality product, it's not like AI is some magical software or some magical code that's out there. Like it's scraping the internet. Like it is scraping the internet for the best possible results based on, based on the quality of the websites that it's getting it from. And so there's a part of me that just thinks, like, if it knows better than I do, then why not at least consult it? There are some things I try to do, like or at least if you're going to lay something out. I mean, sometimes the hardest part about a podcast or building a new website or doing something is just getting started. And so just laying it out with ChatGPT or whatever your choice is, kind of gets you over that like mental block of where do I get started?
Well, and a good example, because I'm so knee deep in this currently, like my big project at the time of recording this with you, Chris, is this DNS course that I'm revamping. And it has been eye-opening because I feel the same way as you do in that, like, there's a sense of pride that gets hit when you have help with this kind of stuff. Whereas before, I'm like, that version of the course was all me, 100%. I typed every single word. I did my own research and stuff, but I'm getting a lot more help now with ChatGPT in particular. But here's what I'm not doing. I'm not relying on it to create a course for me. What I'm doing is I create the initial outline that makes sense to me and the lessons that I needed to know 16 years ago when I got into web design. And then I take it into ChatGPT to fill in the gaps or to help me expand on certain things that I'm, again, like EPP codes, didn't know too much about it, the different type of DNS zone editors and stuff, or the records that are in there. Like, I forgot I should add this. So that's where it's helping me tremendously, is like to just fill in. But the core of the start to finish is still me. Like it's my journey. And
yes,
one thing I'm really being intentional about with how I'm using AI with this stuff is, in this course in particular, I'm starting off the course with DNS horror stories, which are stories that have reduced my hairline. And that's how we're going to kick it off. Like, just to show, like, ChatGPT could come up with some scenarios, but like, these are going to be actual things that happened to me in my freelance web design business because I didn't understand some DNS stuff. So I'm kind of like trying to stay as personal and genuine and authentic with the help of AI filling in the gaps and expanding on things where needed. So that's kind of that's kind of how I'm using it, especially in content creation.
I think there's a fear, and I think the fear of AI is that people don't understand it yet. And I think that they're trying to figure out where do you fit in an AI world? I think the most important thing to remember is that AI is only most powerful in a subject matter expert's hands. In fact, we were just talking about this. Is you have two developers. You have a seasoned developer, and then you have somebody straight out of college. They have no experience. The thing about those two is that if you give them the same goal, and they're both going to use AI. If you give them the same goal, the seasoned developer is going to get a more quality output because they know what they're looking for. They're saying, like, this is what I want. Here is how I want to get it. Whereas maybe like a junior or somebody who's just out of college is kind of like, they don't even know, like they don't know what they're looking for. And they both will look like, if it's a homepage, they'll both look like a homepage. But the one with the experience behind it, I think it's going to have the most longevity. It's going to have the best output. So
experienced prompts. That's
prompts.
That's where the gold is.
Yeah. So yeah, it's and you have to use it. I think you have to force yourself to use it if you want to get better at it and to remove the fear. So yeah, that's great, man. Well, I wanted to give a few minutes for you, Chris. I feel like we got cut off on our last coffee meeting. It went so dang fast, but you had some great questions about like the event and everything. So I wanted to give you a little bit of time because this has been great, by the way, man. I've really enjoyed digging into a little bit of your past, just as such an OG in this industry and a mentor of mine, but then to hear how you've kind of gone through agency designer life, corporate designer life, and freelance has always been a, refrigerator hum that has stuck with you for a long time. So I appreciate you, sharing all that and being open with what you're doing with your tool stack and AI. But yeah, man, I wanted to give you a few minutes if there was anything you wanted to ask me. I felt I mean, firstly, man, I really appreciate you inviting me on. To be honest, this is like the first time I've really ever articulated my career. So there are times where I feel like my mind is jumping all over the place, and I'm like, I want to say this, but maybe for later, So
did you ever buy webdesign.com with the 2 B's? Is that available? Did we find that out?
No, I didn't. I know that it's not cheap, and so with my last name being Webb, I probably should have jumped on that ship a long time ago. So.
I mean, that's just like the perfect branding. By golly, it might be worth it, Chris. Might be worth it. If we ever do something together, we'll see about.
I love it.
How much that costs.
Yeah. Well, so so we were talking downtown. Here's what I'm really amazed about what you've done, and here I'm going to kind of gloat for you a little bit, but I don't think there's really a good way to capture. Like, not everybody puts together a successful one. I mean, you ran your own business before this podcast even took off. And so I'm amazed by that. Then you went and you did the podcast thing, you did the courses and whatnot, but then you went and doubled down and came up with a conference, which I just think is, I feel like, as kind of an extrovert, a little bit more of an extrovert, I like to imagine that I could tackle just about anything, but that to me sounds overwhelming. I'm just curious, what was there any fear in deciding that you were going to do the conference?
It was the thing that kept me from doing it was the feeling of overwhelm, just knowing how much work it was going to be. And it wasn't it wasn't a ridiculous amount of work, but it was a lot of work, especially being the first event. So that was the only thing that held me back. It wasn't a fear of it not turning out well, but it was if I'm going to host an event, I also know myself and I can't do anything half-ass, for better or for worse. So I'm going to go all out. It's going to consume me for probably a few months. So I had thought about doing an event. I mean, technically when I created Web Designer Pro back when it was the Web Design Club back in 2020, I thought about doing some sort of an event. So like the seed was planted long ago, but then we finally got to the point with the community where it was stable enough revenue wise to where I'm like, okay, I have a little bit of freedom and leeway to like spend some time elsewhere, because, you know, I didn't need to hustle to get the revenue to a certain place. I really had to double down to get Pro to be able to stable place to support me and my family and, you know, have a good trajectory there. And then it was like, okay, I feel like it's time I can do the event. But it was the overwhelming nature of like, oh my gosh, yeah, like, are we talking a 500 person event, make it semi-public or just private, or, you know, are 3 people going to show up? Where are we going to do it? All these questions came into play, but it worked out freaking awesome. And
I follow it from, you know, I'd seen it on socials, and I kind of seen, you know, just, I don't know. It was bizarre because it was like, it's just a big thing, like to set up a conference and then to have the confidence in yourself enough to know that like, I'm going to invite people from all over the world and then they're going to come and hang out with me. And then I would be like, well, am I even that cool to hang out with? Like, you know, like it's one thing to be here on a podcast and you can cut it up and you can, you know, you can edit it or whatever. But then for somebody to be actually there in your presence and they get to experience all your, you know, like quirks and whatnot, like there's a little bit of like I would have maybe like a minor anxiety trip where a bit, you know, just kind of like.
Well, I will say I think it helped because with Pro, it's a smaller community. We have like, you know, just over 300 members total, which is a small community relative to a lot of Facebook groups and other communities. So there's beauty in that though, because especially with the coaching aspect, I know so many members and I've tracked them for a while and they've been with me for many years in some cases. So it would be different. Here's what I'll say. It would be different doing like a big public event where I don't know people very well, but even the members who came who I didn't know super well, we got to know each other really quick. And there was such a sense of like bringing people together who, you know, we all have seen each other in different aspects inside of Web Designer Pro. So I think that was the key, honestly, was the fact that we were a close community already online, and then we became a closer community in person. So that helped for sure. That was a big time confidence booster. If I were to host like a random web design event and then, you know, a ton of people are going to come who I don't know, the feeling would be different. I would definitely feel like, okay, I'm going to need to like, you know, make this.
Are there things that you would have done differently? Like, do you look back and be like, damn, like I didn't, like I would have changed that?
No, I literally wouldn't change a thing. And I think the it sounds douchey, sounds boastful, but I really truly would not change a thing. I think the amount of people was perfect. We had just under 40 Web Designer Pro members come. The space was perfect at the AC Hotel downtown. It was just killer. The events were perfect. The Clippers game, our dinner at Buca di Beppo was awesome. The socials we did, the nightlight stuff we did, like it was truly like the perfect weekend. But there was a few things that contributed to that. One was I had been thinking about it for a long time. And my thought was it helps that we did it in Columbus because we know the city well. So like I know with a group of, once we found out how big it was going to be, I had 2 different spaces as options. One was like for under 24 people. One was for over 24 to 50 to 60 people. So either way, like if only 8 people bought tickets, we would have been like, okay, we can do the lower space and try to, get 20 folks. So I had like some plan B preparedness ready to go in that case. But once we figured out how big it was going to be, then it was just a matter of like, okay, what can we do with 40 people? You can't go to a coffee shop with 40 people unless you rent it out. You can meet smaller meetups in like different bars and restaurants and stuff. But then like as a group, the baseball game was perfect. Clippers game, we rented a suite out. It was perfect for that size. Buca di Beppo, the Italian restaurant, can hold, 50, 60 people. So it was like, where are we going to go to eat with 40 people? Like, there we go.
That's a killer area down there.
Oh, dude. Yeah. So it was all in walking distance. So, I mean, it was honestly a big thanks to just Columbus being just such a great city and being very walkable and not too big, not too small. So that was huge. But yeah, so all those things, like it was those type of things that were the most work, because I needed to do the work of like, organizing all of it, and then just the admin kind of stuff. But I had some help. We had a member in Pro Austin who was a huge help for a lot of that stuff. Bounced a lot of ideas off of him to think through some of that. And then, it came together, man. It came together quick. I really wouldn't change a thing, and we're going to run it back. We're doing it again in 2026.
I was going to ask him, like, are you going to do it again? So
yeah, we just need to limit it. That's the trick will be to limit it to 50. We could do that same thing with 50 people for sure, but that's going to be the hard cap on 26. And then we'll see.
You could rent out Nationwide Arena.
We'll see. That's some people say that, but that's a whole, like, and honestly, it's a whole different deal. Like, I think in the future, if an event grew past 50 to 100 people, it would be a separate thing. And I would even be open to doing like a big web design event that would be presented by a Web Designer Pro. But then, the community event is going to be smaller and for the coaching tier of members, at least first dibs. So yeah. But it really was awesome. It was incredible. I'm still on a high from it months later.
I know. I do have one more question.
I'm good.
I am, so when you decided to do the conference, like, is the goal of a conference to build a in-person relationship with your members? What is the biggest gain out of doing a conference?
That one for sure. It was retention. Truly, it's a retention type strategy. It is to strengthen the community. Cause like when you meet people online, it's great. But then when you meet somebody in person, it's just a whole different level. This is why I'm such a big proponent of web designers getting in person and meeting clients, because you just sell better. You make better relationships. It's especially in the age of AI and online anonymity, it's more important. So that was the biggest goal, was to just strengthen the community and get us together in person. There's different types of goals from what I've seen with conferences. Some of it is revenue. Some of it is to upsell something like higher end. I know a lot of influencers and communities will do like an in-person event, and then they sell a mastermind or like a high tier ticket product. That was not the case for this. I'm not opposed to those type of things. It would be a great additional option if I do some stuff like that. But this was purely like, let's get in person, strengthen the community, bring us together. I definitely didn't want to lose money, so like we were plus $5,000. Yeah, we were plus $5,000 thanks to our sponsor. So like that was great. Obviously, I didn't technically make that much with the amount of money or amount of hours I spent on it, but it is going to pay off dividends years and years and years ahead. So yeah, that was the big goal for that one, was like, let's get us in person, strengthen the community, and create these friendships. And like a lot of people, actually this week at the time of us, we'll have to send you this episode at the time of us talking about this. AT, who's a member of Pro, he has a podcast episode we did together on AI that I'll send to you. It's really good.
I was just listening to that before.
Okay, cool.
Getting my podcast chops on.
I didn't know he knew anything about AI until we met up, and he was just casually talking about, like you talked about, you just casually start talking to designers, you hear about their tool stack, you hear about what they're doing. That was that case, 40 times over. So, meeting him and hearing about that, I was like, dude, I didn't even know you were doing this or how far along you are in AI. So that was the kind of hidden, beautiful thing about an in-person event, is it's not something that's marketable in the sense of like, if you go to this event, you'll have amazing conversations and you'll learn this. Like, it's just probably going to happen. Now we did a workshop. I intentionally made it a workshop day that is like, you're going to get some training. You're going to get some sort of like, for sure, even if you don't make any friends, you're going to leave with, making it worth your time with these presentations. But it was the community aspect that really was it was all incredible, but yeah, it was the surprises. That's what I'm looking for. It was the surprises that were the best part of the weekend, I think.
Yeah. Well, I will say as a longtime friend, I think a lot of your success has come from building genuine relationships. I think that, whether it was starting in Web Designer Pro, or if it was and back in transit, I think it was in transit.
Yeah.
All of your relationships were genuine and strong. And so, I think that's, I think it's only par for the course that you would have a conference where you go and your guys' pictures looked awesome. You guys were like at the Blue Jackets game, or I don't know if it's Blue Jackets, but you were like,
Clippers,
yeah. And, I think it's only natural that's the direction you ended up going. So,
well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of, that's definitely a core like principle that's carried on with me. I mean, honestly, going back to like high school, I remember getting like quite a few different groups of friends like connected together. I've always enjoyed being a connector and like having, genuine relationships. Like looking back, I've had zero tolerance or interest in like fake, false, douchey relationships. That just doesn't interest me at all. Even I think a lot of people do that if it's like, I mean, going back to like school dynamics, it's like you find the top dog and you try to be friends with them so you look cool. I've never cared about any of that. Like I'd rather hang out with, art class Chris and let's hang out and then do life together. Like that's so much more interest to me than like the vanity metric kind of.
You did do a pretty good job though. You dabbled very well in a lot of different groups. So you've always lived by your own code, and I thought that was always cool. So that's pretty sweet. So
well, it is interesting how things back in those years translate and make total sense now. Cause that was not something intentional back then to have like a bunch of different groups of friends and then like, have a fairly like a dabble nature of like connecting people. But it worked perfect when I went to the band life because it was very similar. Like you had a bunch of different people and different bands and different promoters and marketers, and it was networking. It was just networking in the music world. And then that transitioned to the first iteration of doing freelance and then growing my client base and then getting into web design. And then once I got into like teaching online, I met Elegant Themes, and then there was a podcast called Divi Chat, and I reached out to them and I was like, hey, I'm a Divi designer. I'd love to connect with you guys and potentially be on. That spawned a ton of different relationships. And then, it's kind of followed that same playbook, basically. Like, there's not an intentional playbook or thing I follow, but it's just kind of natural for me. I think that's something I learned, was to be self-aware about just like how I operate. And that's kind of how I do it. I do have to catch myself though, because I can tend to dabble in a bunch of different relationships. Well, that sounds terrible. Not in a marriage front, but a friendship front. Very loyal.
Wife, don't listen to this one. No.
Right. But like I do tend to like be really interested in a group for a while. And then if I get disinterested or whatever, I have to like move on. But it's interesting. Like I really only have like a few close friends, you in there for sure. Like, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that you and we're not on the exact same path, but we share a lot of similar interests. And honestly, like a lot of my friends from high school, I don't even know what we would talk about today. Like, I just don't care about Buckeye football that much. The weather's fine, whatever.
The weather's fine.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I would get bored quite quickly. So when you and I get to meet up, and that was the cool thing about the event, was like small talk stuff just kills me. It just drains the life out of me if I'm not interested in it. So to have like nonstop conversations about entrepreneurship, it was like a hangout with you for 4 days straight, and it was awesome. So
we can make that happen. We'll have our own conference. We'll just,
let's do it. The Webb and Hall Web Design Conference.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate that though, man. I mean, and I think it's important for a lot of people to know, like, how do you operate? Like, what lights you up? So I recognize that a lot of people are not like me, and I think it's important to be very self-aware. Like, do what gives you energy. Like, do what lights you up.
100%. Yeah. And to be honest, I really am just fighting there. There's so many things I could say, and so I'm just fighting the urge to not overspeak. But
you're fine,
I think that. I think that the genuine nature is definitely what's the most successful part. I sort of lost where I was going to go with that. We were talking about the conference. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that was that's the most natural direction that I think you could have ever gone. And I don't think I'm going to find the question that I was going to ask.
Well,
so
the idea of genuine nature and character, I think that's really, really important, especially today because of AI. Like people can sense bullshit more so than ever a mile away. And I think years of the entrepreneurial hustle culture and the Lamborghini lifestyle, private plane stuff is just not resonating like it was. I mean, that's been the case for a long time, but I do think there's even more opportunity, even just for service providers as web designers. Like the more just like real you are and somebody's like, I trust this person and I resonate with them. I like them. That's it. That's how you make it. That's how you sell.
Well, and I think that was the point that I was going to make is when I was saying that you live by your code. What I do admire is that when you have boundaries that are defined, you're like, this is who I am. This is what, maybe this is what I talk about, or this is what I'm interested in. And I think when you're younger and maybe you're just trying to fit in life, you'll just talk with anybody. I'm that guy. I was the guy who I had a slew of friends across a big smorgasbord of just people to talk to. But what I've found as I get older, and I want my kids to see this, that's define your boundaries. Here's who I talk to, what I talk about. Here's what I believe. Here are my stances on life. And then stand by them. And I think that I really do think you've done that really well, because I think that you have quality relationships. And I know for myself, I've had better quality relationships. And there's nothing wrong with the people that you were communicating with before, but you have to know the direction you want to go. And in order to do that, you need to have some guidelines. Otherwise you're just, like I said, you're going to chase all kinds of rabbits, and you'll at the end of your life, you'll just have, a very chaotic story. So,
well, and it's an interesting point too, because like when it comes to boundaries and constraints, you're a dad of 4 girls, like you get to a point where you only have so much time and bandwidth, and then it becomes all about like priority. And it's weird to think about putting people on a priority list, but you kind of have to do that at some point. It's like, to be honest, I'm only going to go to coffee and hang out with folks, like so many people with the limited time I have. Like if you ask about it, absolutely, we're on. I'm going to make time for Chris. But there are some people, like this just happened recently, where somebody in the old band days asked about hanging out for lunch. And I'm just like, it seems weird to think about this, but I'm like, what's the ROI on my time? You know what I mean? Like,
I think that
you do get to a place where it's like, is this, this is an old friend. It would be a great combo, but I'm like, I'm going to have to take time away from my family or my work. In a busy season, as it always is. So it's like, is that going to be worth it? And of course, it's not going to be an hour. It's going to be an hour and a half. And then you got prep, and afterwards it's like, we're looking at probably 3 hours. Is that going to be worth it? Or should I get my DNS course done? And I should probably do that, or do this podcast with Chris. That's a bigger priority. So I've certainly had to learn that.
Hey, I do believe in the return on investment, even with friends. It's it's not that I'm looking to gain some sort of monetary value out of you, but I don't want to invest into you if you can't invest back into me. I don't want to overdraw my bank account in order to kind of make you, to be friendly. I want to, you and I, we don't even get together. We get together every few months, but usually we have something like appetizing to talk about, and we want it to be valuable for us both to have a conversation. And because we're both busy, and so when we get together, it's nice to know that, like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna look into this, or I'm gonna share this with Josh or whatever. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, it goes back to iron sharpens iron, right? Like that, just the idea of like, yeah, we both challenge each other when we meet up, like whether it's AI stuff or whether you asking me about event stuff and what I'm up to, like we both leave like, ooh, I guarantee you've left some coffee shop meetings just like I have, where it's like, ooh, I want to jump on this. I got some ideas now. And that's the best, man. That's so much better than, going somewhere with an old friend from high school. And it's like, oh, and again, I feel a little bit about saying it like that, but it's just a reality. Like you only have so much time when you're a busy family man, entrepreneur, all the things. So you have to use the time wisely. And that's definitely where I've landed. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, speaking of time, I know you're on a big project, so I really appreciate your time on this, Chris. This was great, man. Where should people go to catch in with you? And until we can figure out purchasing webdesign.com, where can people go?
Yeah. You can, chrisvwebb.com. And pretty much Chris V Webb for everything, all the socials. So I'm there. So.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, Chris, thank you, man. Again, publicly, dude, thank you for investing in me with your time early on. I mean, I think back to those early days often. I'm like, gosh, it was you probably had no idea the seeds that you were planting to help me get to this point. So big thanks, man. And,
dude, well, thank you for returning the investment with me, and I appreciate it, and all the conversations to come. So it's awesome.
Heck yeah, dude! Let's meet up here. Let's meet. We're about due. We'll be due here pretty soon. So let's do one for the end of the year for sure.
Cool. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Cheers, dude. All right, my friend. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this one. Again, these are the kind of convos I'm lucky to have with Chris here in person every once in a while. And I'm so glad we had a chance to sit down and actually record one of these. And I really took a lot away from this conversation. I'm sure you did too. So leave us a comment. Let us know any takeaways you want to share, whether you're a corporate web designer or whether you're a freelancer or anything in between. I'm sure Chris would love to hear your thoughts from this one. I will let him know to check the comments for the show notes for this episode. You can leave us a comment at joshhall.co/397. And again, you can go check out Chris. His personal site is Chris V Webb. That's 2 B's at the end.com. That will be linked, of course, at joshhall.co/397. Big thanks to my good friend Chris for coming on and sharing quite transparently, which is not always the case with folks in corporate life, if you ever notice that. A lot of times they're very tight to the chest with their stuff, but really appreciate Chris sharing about his experience transparently, pros and cons on the life of a corporate web designer. And again, comments, joshhall.co/397. I will be on the lookout for your thoughts and takeaways, and I will let Chris know the same. All right, my friend, stay subscribed. More good episodes on the way, and some fun stuff on the podcast here soon as well. So make sure to subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.